Hello, nerds! Nerds for humanity. What would Joe Biden versus Donald Trump do on 3 issues: climate change, immigration, and Black Lives Matter? Let's go into each candidate's specific proposals based on what they're saying they're going to do if they get sworn in January. What will they do from 2021 until 2024 around the environment, immigration, and race relations? So let's look at the first policy comparison: climate change. According to the Biden site, one of the goals is to achieve 100% clean energy and net zero emissions by 2050, so about 30 years from now. On day one, Biden will sign a series of executive orders with unprecedented reach going beyond the Obama-Biden administration platform. Demand that Congress enacts legislation in the first year that establishes an enforcement mechanism, including milestone targets no later than the end of his first term. Clean energy, climate research and innovation, incentives for the rapid deployment of clean energy. Smart infrastructure investments in buildings, water, transportation that can withstand the impacts of climate change. Roads, bridges, electrical grid, water infrastructure. Rally the rest of the world to meet the threat of climate change. He will not only recommit the U.S. to the Paris Agreement on climate change, he will go further and lead an effort to get every major country to ramp up the ambition of their domestic targets, make sure those commitments are transparent and enforceable, and stop countries from cheating by using America's economic leverage and power of example. Stand up to the abuse of power by polluters who disproportionately harm communities of color and low income. Fulfill our obligations to workers and communities who powered our industrial revolution. He will not accept contributions from oil, gas, and coal corporations. Yep. All right. There's a lot of stuff on him and climate change. Yeah, he actually goes into quite a bit of detail, laying out the problem. Yeah. Seems like old Joe has got a lot on his list of to-dos. Bring together America's top talent to innovate on climate. ARPA-C. Advanced Research Projects Agency on Climate. Interesting. Modular nuclear reactors. Refrigeration and AC using refrigerants with no global warming. Airline emission. Carbon capture sequestration. Future of nuclear. Electric vehicles. Yeah, this guy's probably on the green side of the spectrum. Yeah, wow. It just goes on and on and on. Jesus. Dude takes climate seriously, or at least his team does. Even talking about freight and passenger rail. Love it. Wow. How much is there? Jesus, there's like tens and tens of pages on climate. I don't think I have time to go through all of it. But bro is serious about climate, no question about that. Clean water, clean air. Then he goes into each region. Woo! I know people used to say Elizabeth Warren had plans, but old Joe's got some legit detail. Now, let's see what President Trump is. As a reminder, President Trump's website does not have any future plans, but it does talk about promises kept. I think we can basically say whatever he did in the last 4 years, he would likely continue. So what has Trump done on the environment? Largest oil and gas lease of 78 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico to expand offshore drilling. Financing for coal and fossil energy. Liquefied natural gas terminal. Keystone XL Dakota Access oil pipelines. New Burgess pipeline. Reversed Obama's moratorium on new leases for oil and gas on federal lands. Affordable clean energy rule. Not sure what that is. It reduce greenhouse gases in power states. Not sure what that is. Let's look it up. Affordable clean energy rule. So what is the Affordable Clean Energy Rule? Establishes emissions guidelines for states when developing plans to limit CO2 at coal-fired power plants. So it's a bunch of coal stuff. Reduce emissions of CO2, mercury, and it will result in benefits of 120 to 730 million. Not sure what this is. Let's see if there's some more details. Okay, these are all new ways to, I think, burn more coal, but presumably more efficiently. That's the story with Trump on the clean energy rule. I think it's the clean coal energy rule. He's also rescinded Obama's methane emissions rule and rescinding fuel standards, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, what they call the unfair Paris Climate Agreement. Streamlined Superfund cleanup program. EPA has relaunched Smart Sectors program to partner with the private sector. Opened up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for domestic energy production. Keystone XL, Dakota Access, repeal of Clean Power Plan, exited Paris Climate Agreement. It's pretty much Trump's plan on energy. I don't know what he's really done on the environment other than maybe some of the less dirty coal proposals. So that's Trump on the climate. I would say if you care about climate change and you think that we need to do more and move away from fossil fuels, then Biden would be your man. Next, let's look at immigration. Under Biden, in his first 100 days, a Biden administration will reverse the Trump administration's cruel and senseless policies that separate parents and children at the border, end Trump's detrimental asylum policies, end the mismanagement of the asylum system, surge humanitarian resources to the border, and foster public-private initiatives, end prolonged detention and reinvest in a case management program, reverse Trump's public charge rule, allowing immigrant officials to make an individual's ability to receive a visa or gain PR contingent on their use of government services, end the so-called national emergency that siphons dollars from the Department of Defense to build a wall, protect dreamers, rescind the what they call un-American travel and refugee bans, also referred to as Muslim bans, order a review of the TPS for vulnerable populations, restore sensible enforcement policies, ensure ICE and CBP abide by professional standards, protect and expand opportunities for those who risk their lives in military service, restore and defend the naturalization process for green card holders, task force on new Americans, increasing access to language instruction, civil engagement, regional meeting of leaders from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and Canada to address factors driving migration and propose a regional resettlement solution. And then they go into more details on how they're going to modernize, reforms to the temporary visa. So generally, I would say this would be kind of a return to the pre-Trump immigration approach, kind of incremental improvements to the Obama immigration stuff. You know, nothing too radical here. Probably closest summary would be kind of undoing a lot of the Trump extreme implementations. Speaking of Trump, what's his record on immigration? He called on Congress to fully fund a wall. They refused. He pulled out of negotiations for a global compact on migration, took action to wind down DACA, rescinded the DAPA, declared a national emergency on the border, made 269,000 arrests of illegal aliens, disqualified sanctuary cities from receiving federal grants, cracked down on international crime. I don't know what that is. A new national public safety partnership, transition to merit-based immigration, and pressured Mexico to deploy troops to the southern border, secured funding for 445 miles of wall, ordered the hiring of 10,000 new ICE agents, $98 million grant to hire new law enforcement officers, National Guard to the border, prioritize targeting gang members, work with local law enforcement to enforce immigration laws, made removals of illegal immigrants a priority. Yeah, I would say if you feel like America is too open to immigration, then Trump would be your candidate. And if you feel like Trump has gone too far, but you still want laws enforced, then maybe Biden would be better for you. Next, let's look at each candidate on race relations. But before we do that, quick thank you to the channel members who make this content possible. At the highest level, we have Kristen Slevin, who's been supporting us for the last 6 months. Thank you, Kristen. At the VP level, we have Laura Lane, Chris Chan, Joshua Frick, Fat Lamb, JM Sap, and VLAM. Thank you to our VPs. Then we have our hardcore level, Mr. History Fan, and Byram Hess. Very new members. Welcome to the NFH Nation. Then we've got Landline, Jekalago, Kirsch, Phoenix, Congress, Koa, DK, Tracy, David, Mrs. Jones, Jean, Chad, and Mike. And then wrapping it up at the verified level, we've got Shake and Make, Machiko, Gail, Nell, Elizabeth, Doris, Richard, Emily, Roger, Ben, Lori, Soldier, Emerald, Mercy Ann, Miles, Verily, Sophia, Jadwiga, Hitachi, Your Mammon, Peter, Arez, Albert, Brandon, Yes, Sugar Sweet, Brian, Lisa, and Sydney. Sydney is our oldest member. Back to the comparison. Biden on race, and specifically the Black American experience. What will Biden do? Invest in African American businesses and entrepreneurs, ensuring equal access to credit and capital. Double the funding for the state small business credit initiative, expand new markets tax credit, improve SBA, increase opportunities for African American owned businesses in federal contracts, minority biz dev agency budget, protect small and disadvantaged business from federal and state contract bundling, make sure economic relief because of COVID-19 reaches African American businesses that need it most, technical assistance, PPP funds for small businesses with 50 employees or less, weekly dashboard to track which small businesses are accessing loans, supporting African American churches, access to housing, tax credit, national standard for housing appraisals, roll back Trump administration policies gutting fair lending and fair housing protections, protect renters from abusive landlords, give local elected officials the tools and resources they need to combat gentrification, hold financial institutions accountable for discriminatory practices, restore government's power to enforce settlements, community reinvestment, eliminate local and state housing regulations that perpetuate discrimination, increase access to affordable housing, protect homeowners, promote equitable wealth building, and more secure retirement, equalize tax benefits of defined contribution plans, remove penalties for caregivers, give small business tax breaks for starting a retirement plan, make Social Security benefits more generous and equitable, implement Congressman Clyburn's 10-20-30 plan. 10% of federal funds of a federal funding program go to communities in which poverty level has been 20% or higher over the past 30 years. That's kind of cool. There's quite a lot of stuff. If you are an African American, I would imagine some of these things would be beneficial to that community. Universal pre-K, give teachers a raise, expand STEM in underserved school districts, teacher diversity, student debt, affordable college, HBCU investments. Woo! Okay. It's kind of like the climate one. There's a lot of stuff here. Public option on healthcare. Use the Justice Department to root out unconstitutional, unlawful policing. Independent task force on prosecutorial discretion. Community-oriented policing. Public defender's offices. Criminal justice reform at the state and local level. Sentencing. There's a lot of stuff here that I think would probably be beneficial to, I'm not going to go through all of them. There's just too many plans on this one. It'll be like an hour-long video. Let's see what Trump is saying about, the closest I could find was his section on law and justice, additional full-time law enforcement officers, restore state and local law enforcement access to equipment from the Department of Defense, including armored vehicles, National Public Safety Partnership, Project Safe Neighborhoods to encourage U.S. attorneys to work with communities to develop customized crime reduction strategies, Department of Justice return to their long-standing policy for federal prosecutors, trusting them once again to charge the most serious offenses. Prosecutors were directed by the Department of Justice to focus on taking illegal guns off the streets. free speech rights on university campuses, hate crime based on gender identity, security guilty plea. All right, that's cool. Organized crime, appointed, I think he's appointed about 200 judges, conservative judges. And school safety. So, yeah, not a whole lot on race relations. If you look at maybe the closest thing would have been this law and justice stuff, given all the BLM discussion. Clearly, he's coming on the side of more police, more equipment, more aggressive enforcement. And then on the economy and jobs, which you could argue affects the African American community, tax cuts, removal of Obamacare mandate, apprenticeship programs. That's pretty cool. So that's it on Trump. So when it comes to race relations, I'd have to say, just based on the way Trump has handled the BLM stuff and, you know, kind of really embracing all the Confederate heritage stuff, it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that if you feel like we need to do more around race relations and bring the country together, probably Biden would certainly do more for folks who feel like we haven't done enough for the African American community. But I should say that would probably piss off a lot of people who feel like too much is being done. But at a minimum, Biden would probably not stir the flames as much as old Donald has. So in summary, we looked at climate change, immigration, and race relations. I would say Biden, very strong on climate change. Immigration, kind of incremental improvements off of what Obama did. Race relations, probably incremental, maybe a little bit more aggressive than what Obama did. And then on the Trump side, climate, it's really more about more energy production, domestic energy production through fossil fuels, if that's your preferred climate approach. On immigration, certainly a very conservative approach to immigration. I will say, I think, you know, the merit-based plan is really interesting, and a lot of countries use that with some success. So we got to give Trump some credit for pursuing that. And then on race relations, you'd see Biden doing more for the African American community. But I don't know, it feels like it's kind of incremental. I think if you had done something like universal basic income, that would be a much bigger kind of move. But maybe we have to wait for Yang 2024 for that. And on Trump with race relations, he really doesn't seem to do much for specifically the African American community. I think he would probably take the position that he's going to do things to grow the economy, and that will lift all boats. So more tax cuts for those earning a lot of revenue and deregulation. And in theory, maybe that would help all people, including the African American communities with the concerns that they have. And then he's definitely on the law enforcement side, probably to an extreme. Hey, if you like this video, please hit that like button. Comment below if you have other topics you want me to do a comparison of the two candidates on. And thanks again to all the members who support the production of this content. You might notice I've got hopefully a little bit better lighting right now. And that is because of the generosity of our channel members. So I'll continue investing in the content and putting time into producing stuff that hopefully is useful, as long as there's an audience out there and people who are supporting the Nerds for Humanity channel. You guys keep it real. Goodbye, nerds. Bye, nerds.